All right, if you are a political junkie, you already know what a wave election is. But for those of you that perhaps are not quite as schooled, I'm going to refer you to a piece that our colleague Stuart Rothenberg wrote in Roll Call yesterday. Stuart Rothenberg, as you know, is the editor and publisher of the Rothenberg Political Report, which is something we all use, particularly when there is an important election, even if it's not a wave election. And he is also a twice-a-week columnist for Roll Call and a guest on the Grandy Group right now. Stu, good morning.
Good morning, guys.
So let's talk about wave elections. What exactly are they, and what do they indicate?
Well, there are elections where there's a national move toward one party against another, where one party, there's some disagreement on the exact number, but I picked the number of at least 20 seats. One party wins at least 20 seats. And it's not equal numbers of losses from Republicans and Democrats. It's one party makes all the gains, the other party takes the hit, and you have big changes in the House of Representatives. The last three elections, we've had the last one, obviously, the Republicans won 63 seats. The two elections before that, the Democrats won 20 and 31. These are big changes, moving in one direction, very different than we had throughout much of the 80s, 90s, and early last decade, with the exception, obviously, of 1994, which was another huge wave of 53 seats.
But what does it tell you when it changes hands so violently, and what does it tell you about the possible election in 2012?
Well, when we have these waves, it tells us that people are really dissatisfied with the status quo. They're angry, they're worried, they're fearful. And while we have had an uptick in sentiment over the last month, there's still a lot of angst out there, over jobs and the economy. But now there are other issues. Foreign policy is out there, and the public still does not feel that the country is headed off on in the right direction. They think it's off on the wrong track.
Does it help the Democrats in this particular case that the president is going to be on the ballot this time around?
It helps in terms of turnout. One of the big Democratic problems last time was that African-American voters and young voters did not turn out in very big numbers.
Right.
They often don't in midterms. A president should bring both of those groups out. That certainly should help Democrats. There is a very particular problem, however, that the Democrats will have this time, which is reapportionment and now redistricting. Republicans control so many governorships and state legislatures. They will be redesigning state lines. Some new numbers just came out in Virginia yesterday. And that gives Republicans an opportunity to draw more favorable districts.
What about the Senate, Stu? I mean, how does that figure into your wave calculations? Because you know mathematically there are many more Democrats up in 2012. Does the wave favor them getting reelected or favor incumbents being thrown out?
Well, it depends Fred, it depends who's the beneficiary of the wave. Look, you can come up with two different scenarios for next time. One is that the president is even less popular than he was in 2010, and in spite of the fact that you have these additional Democratic groups turning out, people vote for more change. That could happen, in which case Democrats would take bigger hits in the Senate. Or people could decide, well, wait a minute, all those Republican promises, they didn't deliver, the Republicans are obstructing progress, and so you could have a wave the other way. Right now it's too early to know that, but there's this one kicker in the Senate, and that is there are 23 Democratic Senate seats up next time and only 10 Republican, which means the Republicans have only 10 seats to defend. In the worst case, only 10 seats to lose. Obviously, they're not going to lose all the seats up. So if there is going to be a Senate wave, another big change in the U.S. Senate, it will more than likely help the Republicans and hurt Democrats. Democrats have just a lot of Senate seats at risk.
All right. And then I was going to get to that point because you brought it up, and I was thinking to myself, is this way too early to talk about the 2012 elections and this wave continuing? I was just thinking back to 2009, right after the 2008 elections when the president was inaugurated, and who would have ever thought that the Republicans could pick up 63 seats in the next election?
Great point, Brian. Well, first of all, for political analysts, it's never too early.
No, and listen, trust me, I love talking about it too, Stu. So,
but you're absolutely right, and that's why I didn't say we're going to have a wave, we're not going to have a wave. I raised the point that we have been in a period of churning, of dissatisfaction here over the last 6 years, and the question is, will that continue or not? And we won't know that for a while. We'll have a better idea 12 months from now. But a lot's going to depend on candidate recruitment, what happens with jobs, and how the president performs. You're exactly right. We ought to take a wait-and-see attitude now.
Speaking of candidates and the presidential election, we just spent the better part of the last half hour talking to Newt Gingrich. Do you think he's going to catch a wave this time? Will he be a nominee, and how far will he get?
Certainly looks like he wants to run. I've spoken to a number of people who say he's very active. He's asking people for money. His daughter does a lot of activity in terms of booking him for events, and it's clear that there's a lot going on there. I don't know. There is no clear front runner. I just wrote something about Mitt Romney, who is often regarded as the front runner. I believe he's a very, very frail front runner. I don't really think there is one. Could Newt catch a wave? Sure, any of these candidates could. It's hard for him. He is smart. He's an interesting guy. On the other hand, he's been around an awful long time. He's been a politician, and Americans look for change, new faces, new ideas. The Republicans tend to look for kind of older, more established figures than the Democrats. That's true, but there's going to be this is going to be a big Republican field.
Okay,
sounds good. Thank you, Stu. We always appreciate you coming on the show.
Great.
All right, my pleasure.
Stu Rothenberg here on the Grandy Group.